When you do that work to learn to feel capable and valuable inside so that you can speak up freely and add value in the room, not only do you stand out at work and become respected as a leader and get promoted more quickly, but even more important, you start to feel proud of who you are. And there is no better feeling than liking the person that you are showing up as. Welcome to The Art of Speaking Up, a podcast that helps professional women access the limitless potential that lies within them. I'm your host, Jessica Guzik, and my mission is to help you find that spark inside you that has the power to transform your career in ways you may not have thought possible. I'm so excited that you're here. And now, on to the show. Here is what I want you to imagine. Number one, senior leaders at your company are super eager to promote you within your organization. And number two, you have a known reputation as a highly capable leader. And I want you to imagine that this reputation that you have isn't because you are the one who is always working the hardest or saying yes to projects that nobody else wants to do, but it's because of how effectively you speak up in meetings. When it comes to your reputation and your ability to advance within your company, your voice and your communication is your number one most powerful asset to help you get ahead. That is why in today's episode, I want to teach you how to speak up in a way that is going to grow your reputation and speed up your path towards leadership. The way I'm going to teach you to do this is through a framework that I am obsessed with recently. It's called permission-based speaking versus value-based speaking. If you're hearing this and thinking that you don't know what these phrases mean, don't worry. I'm going to get into it and explain what it means for you. And we're going to start with permission-based speaking. Permission-based speaking is when you look for permission before you speak up at work. So here are some examples of what it looks like to have permission to speak. Maybe you're in a meeting where everybody's giving updates and it's your turn to give an update. That would be permission. Or maybe your boss turns to you and says, "Hey, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic." That's another form of permission. Or maybe you are the one running the meeting. Therefore, you definitely have permission to speak. So permission-based speaking is when you wait to have some form of permission before you speak. And this is a very common mindset to experience. And it's something that I experienced at the very beginning of my 9-to-5 career, back when I was really struggling with self-confidence. I personally felt very emotionally safe waiting for permission to speak. It felt like a psychological security blanket for me to know that I wasn't going to speak in the room unless I had permission. I believed that I was being really respectful. I thought I was respecting the hierarchy, and my thought process was, I'm going to let the leaders in the room speak, and that's going to make me look good because I'm so thoughtful, I'm so respectful, I'm giving them the space, I'm deferring to their expertise. I felt safe. I felt like I didn't have to face these scary risks and vulnerability that comes with speaking up. So this became a very addictive mindset for me. But there came a moment when I realized that this approach was actually harming my career development. So when I had my very first performance review, back when I was in my 9-to-5 career, and I had just started my career, I was working at a management consulting firm called McKinsey. I had my first performance review, and I was told I am behind the standard of where they would expect an entry-level associate to be, and that unless I changed my behavior and demonstrated leadership skills, I was not on track to get promoted. And also at McKinsey, if you're not on track to get promoted, that means you're going to get booted. So not only was I not on a growth track, but I was on a negative track. And one of the main reasons why I was on that track is because I was not demonstrating something that they called thought leadership. Thought leadership means that you are showing people that you are using your mind to help lead your organization to better outcomes. And typically, it includes behaviors like speaking up in the room, even if you're not a total expert, pushing the envelope and sharing bold suggestions, taking risks in the way that you participate and contribute in the room. All of these communication habits are ways that you show your organization and your boss that you are so invested in helping to move the organization forward that you are going to speak up in any room, even when you're not an expert, even when things get difficult, even when you don't have all the answers. You are going to get in there, you are going to roll up your sleeves, and you are going to find a way to add value in the conversation. When companies see employees who have that trait, those are typically the employees who are going to get moved into leadership positions faster. Now, because I was engaging in permission-based speaking, and I was only speaking when I was explicitly called on or explicitly running the meeting, I had no possible way of demonstrating thought leadership because by definition, thought leadership means you're taking risks. It means you're rolling up your sleeves and getting in there to help and be a part of the conversation. And if you never speak without permission, you can never show people that you're the type of person who's going to get in there and get messy and help everyone solve tough problems. So I realized that I had to change my behavior if I wanted to get ahead in the organization. Now, at first, I said to myself, okay, cool. They're saying that I need to speak more in these rooms. So that's what I'll do. I'll go and speak more in these rooms. And unfortunately, that simple intention of changing my behavior didn't work for me. I knew what I was supposed to do, but I wasn't able to actually do it because psychologically, I hadn't yet developed the mindset I needed to support that new behavior. It wasn't until I started working on my mindset that I started being able to actually speak up. And that's what I want to help you with in the rest of this episode. We're going to take a quick break. And when we're back from the break, I'm going to teach you what value-based speaking is and how to make the mindset shifts necessary to start speaking up and sharing your voice super powerfully as a leader. First, a quick break. If you want to get promoted within your organization, you have to demonstrate something called bias to action. Bias to action means that you are someone who takes powerful steps forward, even when you are faced with challenges, ambiguity, and obstacles. People who demonstrate bias to action make exceptional leaders, and they tend to get promoted quickly. If you want to develop the skill of bias to action, grab my free bias to action worksheet. It guides you step by step in how to demonstrate bias to action when you are running meetings. Grab it for free by clicking the link in the show notes or by going to jessguzikcoaching.com/bias to action, all one word. And now back to the episode. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the flip side to permission-based speaking, which is value-based speaking. Value-based speaking is when you speak anytime you believe that your contribution will be valuable. So let me contrast it with permission-based speaking. With permission-based speaking, the trigger that causes you to speak is you get outside permission. With value-based speaking, the trigger that causes you to speak is your own belief that your contribution will be valuable. So instead of asking, do I have permission to speak? You ask, will this be valuable? So when someone has a value-based mindset, they are typically going to speak up even if they aren't called on. They're going to speak even if there are senior leaders in the room. They're going to speak even if their role in the room is ambiguous. And they're also going to challenge people and defend their own ideas when they get pushback. Now, here's the thing. In order to pivot to value-based speaking, you have to work on your mindset. It's not just about intellectually knowing that you want to speak up more. You probably already know that. It's about addressing the deeper fears and the deeper reasons why you wait for permission to speak up. And that's exactly what I want to explore next. If you identify with permission-based speaking, here's a question that I want to pose. Why are you waiting for permission? And for many people, a past version of myself included, the reason that we're waiting is because we are unsure if what we have to say is valuable. The thought process is, I don't know if my contributions are valuable. I don't know if I'm valuable. So I will wait until I have permission to speak. That permission will help me overcome the doubts around whether I'm valuable, because when I get permission to speak, something outside of me is reassuring me that I am valuable and therefore I can speak. So with permission-based speaking, it's often not just about the fact that you need permission to speak. It's about the fact that you need permission to feel like you're capable and valuable. You need something outside of you to tell you that you are good enough, that you are worthy of speaking, that you are worthy of taking up space. Now, if you relate to this, there is no shame in this experience, and this is a very common experience, especially for high-achieving professional women. It's not because something is wrong with you, and it's not something to blame yourself for. That being said, it's worth examining because it could be getting in the way of you demonstrating your maximum potential in the workplace. And that brings me to the next thing I want to talk about, which is the deeper psychology behind value-based speaking. So I just explained that the deep psychology behind permission-based speaking is often the belief that you are not valuable and the world outside of you needs to verify that you are valuable before you can speak. With value-based speaking, the psychology is you know that you are valuable. You don't need anyone outside of you to tell you that. And therefore, you don't need anyone outside of you to give you permission to speak. You already believe that you are valuable and capable, and that drives you to speak up and participate. So at its core, the key difference between someone who is a permission-based speaker versus someone who is a value-based speaker is that a value-based speaker has an internal experience of competence and capability, whereas a permission-based speaker does not, and therefore looks to the outside world to offer them that feeling of competence and capability. And this explains why just trying to force yourself to quote unquote speak up without addressing the underlying psychology typically doesn't work, because there is a deeper psychological operating system that is telling you that you aren't good enough, that you aren't capable. And you are trying to fight against that and muscle through it to speak up, rather than changing that operating system and believing you are capable, and then as a result, speaking up with a greater sense of ease. So if you have awareness that you need to speak up more, but it's still really hard, please don't beat yourself up because of that. Please just give yourself grace and recognize that this stuff is challenging. This stuff is tricky. And I want you to realize that speaking up is not just about words coming out of your mouth. It is an act that symbolizes your belonging in society and your worth as a human. Anytime we take up space in the world, what we're implicitly doing is we're saying, I'm worthy of taking up space. And that can be a really challenging thing to do. So if that feels hard for you, please know that nothing is wrong with you. And most importantly, please know that this is something that you can change. I have so much belief and optimism that you can change this and grow through this because I grew through this in my corporate career. And I've seen so many women grow through this as I've gotten the privilege of getting to work with them in my coaching practice. So that brings me to the final part of this episode, which is how you make the shift and how you change your internal psychology from permission-based speaking to value-based speaking so that you are no longer waiting for people around you to grant you the green light to speak up and use your voice. So I want to walk you through the big psychological changes that I worked on that helped me finally start speaking up and that helped me reverse that negative performance review that I got at McKinsey and that helped me build a really successful career in the corporate and 9-to-5 world. The first thing that will help you transition to value-based speaking and feel inherently valuable inside is to learn to quiet the negative thought patterns that hold you back. So, for example, self-criticism, blaming yourself in your mind and telling yourself that you're bad and that you're doing it wrong and that you're not capable. Comparison, so comparing yourself to people around you and using that to beat yourself up and tell yourself, oh my gosh, I'm so behind. People are naturally good at this. What is wrong with me? Another big one is rumination, getting really stuck on something that you did wrong. And again, using that to shame and blame yourself. If you want to feel truly capable inside so that you can transition to value-based speaking, you have to learn to distance yourself from these ways of thinking. And when I'm working with my clients inside of the Art of Speaking Up Academy, this is the first thing that we work on. Because before we can start showing up as this new version of ourselves, we have to let go of some of the old psychological habits that are getting in the way of us feeling confident. And once you get better at letting go of those negative thought patterns, it opens up psychological space. Your mind is less cluttered and overwhelmed with all of that worry and spinning and negativity. And that creates a beautiful opportunity for you to practice new ways of thinking. So the second phase is you start to practice kinder, more empowering ways of thinking. You practice being supportive of yourself in your own mind. So for example, before a big meeting, instead of telling yourself you're going to blow it, you blew it last time, this is going to be so bad, you tell yourself, I'm strong and I'm so courageous for doing this, and I'm proud of myself for even stepping up and giving this a real attempt. You also practice celebrating small wins. So instead of letting your mind focus on everything you feel like you did wrong, you practice finding what is going right and celebrating yourself and acknowledging progress. This sounds so simple when I say this. This is incredibly difficult to do if you have not had a habit of thinking of yourself in a favorable light. If you have spent a lot of your life thinking of yourself critically, it can almost feel like a completely foreign language when you try to be supportive towards yourself. So you have to slow down and learn it from scratch, the way that you would learn a new language from scratch. And I share this because I think a lot of times you will hear this type of advice on a podcast, right? Like you'll hear me say, be kind to yourself, treat yourself in an empowering way. And then you'll go out and struggle to do it. And you'll think, what is wrong with me? Why is this so hard? How come I still don't feel confident? Well, that's the equivalent of you saying to yourself, learn to speak French. Go to your next meeting, and instead of speaking in your native language, speak in French. And then you try to speak in French and you can't because you don't know French, assuming you actually don't know French. Well, that makes sense because you didn't learn the language. And relating to yourself in a kind and empowering way works exactly the same way. In fact, being kind to yourself and learning to speak to yourself in a way that makes you feel confident is more complex than learning a new language. It is easier to learn French than it is to learn to treat yourself differently. So if it's taking you some time, that's okay. Nothing's wrong with you. It's because you're undertaking something really big. Now, there are a couple other pieces to the change equation that I want to cover. So the next one is one of the most important ones, and it's my absolute favorite thing to work with my clients on, which is learning to be in intimidating rooms without your emotions overwhelming you. When you learn how to be in a situation that is emotionally challenging without letting those emotions cause you to freeze or shrink or not speak up, you start to feel really internally strong. And that internal strength starts to make you feel capable and valuable. And as you feel capable and valuable, you transition to value-based speaking. You think to yourself, I am valuable, I am capable, and therefore I will contribute in the room. Now, the final step to the change process is you have to treat it as a process and you have to work on it incrementally in small steps. This is not an overnight fix. And I think something that can really get tricky when it comes to self-help is just because I can explain this to you in a 5-minute segment of a podcast episode, it doesn't mean it takes 5 minutes to do. And I think a lot of times when we learn these things, they sound simple, so we assume that they should be quick and simple. And then when they aren't, we blame ourselves. So the most important thing to realize is that if you've been struggling or it's taking time, it's not because you've done anything wrong. It's because the goal of feeling capable and valuable inside is a big goal. It is not a small feat. And it takes focused, dedicated, deliberate effort to bring that goal to life. But one thing that I will tell you is that it's worth it to do that work because it helps you grow not just professionally, but also personally. When you do that work to learn to feel capable and valuable inside so that you can speak up freely and add value in the room, not only do you stand out at work and become respected as a leader and get promoted more quickly, but even more important, you start to feel proud of who you are. And there is no better feeling than liking the person that you are showing up as. Not just liking that person, but being impressed by that person, feeling proud of that person. That is when you feel like a true leader. And that is when your job becomes fun because you get to show up and express a version of yourself that you are so wildly proud of being. So yes, it takes work and effort. And yes, there is real inner psychological work required to find your voice in the workplace, but it is so worth it because evolving into the version of you that you dream of being, in my opinion, is priceless. Now, if you're thinking that this is the change that you want to experience, and if you feel genuinely ready to put in the work to make that change happen, then I want to invite you to come work with me inside of my program, The Art of Speaking Up Academy. In this episode, I talked all about how learning to speak up comes from changing your internal psychology. And that is exactly what I help you with inside of the Art of Speaking Up Academy. In this program, I help you shrink the self-criticism and build genuine inner confidence so that you have the inner strength you need to speak up fearlessly and stop waiting for permission to speak. The Art of Speaking Up Academy is highly unique in that I help you with the inner psychological work that you need to feel comfortable speaking up freely. And I help you with the practical skills of speaking in a way that is crisp and compelling so that you know how to impress senior level stakeholders with your communication style. This program is where you'll take the concepts that you learn on the podcast and actually put them into practice. So you're not just doing theoretical learning, but you're experiencing actual, real inner and outer transformation. If you are ready to get started, click the link in the show notes or go to jessguzikcoaching.com/academy and add yourself to the waitlist. When you join the waitlist, you will get a private invitation to enroll early, which not only allows you to secure your spot in advance, but also qualifies you for exclusive early enrollment bonuses. These bonuses rotate, so sometimes you get a free workshop, sometimes you get a private one-on-one session with me included for free in your enrollment package. Once you join the waitlist, you will find out what that early enrollment bonus is, and you will get your invite to enroll early. If you are ready to experience real growth in your voice and in your career path, then add yourself to the waitlist by clicking the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I had so much fun recording this one. And if this episode resonated with you, please tell me. I will share my contact information in the show notes, and I would love to hear from you. Have an amazing day, and I will catch you in the next episode. Bye.